A lot of people ask me how I transitioned into product management with no product experience. And I'm about to tell you how I did it. Hey, what's up, everyone? Today, I wanted to bring you this video because a surprising number of people have been asking me about my transition from engineering to product management. 3 different people have asked me about it within the last week. So something is definitely afoot. A lot of people are trying to transition from engineering to product management, and I wanted to make this video to explain why I did it, how I did it, and hopefully this can be somewhat helpful for you if you're looking to go through a similar transition. My hypothesis as to why people are switching from software engineering to product management is because of the introduction of AI tools. I was talking to one of the engineers that I work with, and he was remarking how GitHub Copilot, it's not like it takes away the need for engineers. It's more like it lowers the bar of engineering experience or skill required in order to start as an engineer. You start to diverge into 2 types of engineers. The practice of software engineering, because it requires less skills and experience because of AI, lowers the bar for entry. So the salary and compensation, I feel like, lower perhaps a little bit. On the flip side, the engineers who are probably going to make a lot of money are the ones that have studied AI and are the ones that are building the AI models and building the AI tools that other engineers and people use on a day-to-day basis. Either you become a software engineer that doesn't require as much salary or skills, or you become a super specialized, super educated software engineer, like you have a PhD in AI, or something like that. And you probably make a lot of money in that field. Now, I kind of knew that I was not going to really be happy being either of these engineers. I couldn't really see myself being either of these engineers. Let me tell you a little bit about my personal journey, story, relationship with software engineering. I went to Georgetown, which is not really known to be a computer science school. I had originally gone there for business school. I had gone there with the intention of learning how to build business skills for entrepreneurship. I was a very bright-eyed teenager who didn't know better. And what I've learned more than anything is that entrepreneurship requires no education at all. I went into the undergraduate business school at Georgetown, which has a great reputation, and quickly found out that it's mostly a feeder school into Wall Street and finance jobs. Having grown up in Silicon Valley, I didn't completely understand the appeal of a finance job, especially when your compensation working in tech could be just as good, if not better. So, and the lifestyle, work-life balance is way, way worse. So I figured, what's the point in learning finance when it's probably more useful for me to learn software engineering or computer science? If I wanted to start my own thing, I could code the MVP and then take things from there. So with that, I switched from finance to computer science. And I kind of knew that I would be a better fit for product in the long run, but it just wasn't really clear to me how I would get to it because there wasn't that much of an established tech pipeline from the school that I was at into these big tech roles. And software engineering seemed like the most concrete skill that I could market myself as. I went through the computer science program, graduated with a degree in that, and then a minor in business administration. I did a couple of internships. I did a project management internship at MasterCard when I was in college. And I did my junior year summer internship was at a VC called True Ventures, which I think they do fabulous work. And their mentorship and internship program is amazing. If you're an undergrad, I highly recommend checking them out. Their True Ventures fellowship program puts you 4 out of 5 days of the work week at one of their portfolio companies. So if you're a software engineer, you can do software engineering work at one of their portfolio companies. And then one of the 5 days of the week, you would spend with the VC and learn all about that trade, what it's like to raise money, how VC works fundamentally. They find and invest in startups. And I thought that was a really enriching experience, especially coming from Georgetown, where there's not as much of that kind of culture. I had interned at this material science company called Zymergen. At the time, it was a unicorn valued at around $3 billion. And I thought, oh, cool. Like, it's very like high tech, hard science. I didn't completely understand what they did, but I was happy to be there. I liked the people that I worked with. My managers were really amazing. So I had a return offer there. I took it. I went back to Zymergen after I graduated. While all of this was happening, I had also started a kind of successful side business off TikTok selling like Avatar The Last Airbender fan merchandise, which is kind of wild. I made like close to 80 grand in sales revenue over 4 months, which is wild. So that experience in and of itself gave me a lot more conviction that maybe I was meant to do something that was more focused on product than software engineering. And I graduated into the pandemic, which was a really weird time. There were a lot of tech companies which were probably overinflated, and a series of unfortunate events happened, and my startup had to half its size. There were so many people that got laid off, they had to do it twice. So I started kind of freaking out. I had spent about a year and a half there, and had not really loved software engineering at that time. It was probably a combination of factors. Number one, that I never loved software engineering all that much. Secondly, the company was going through a hard time. And third, it was COVID. So it was kind of hard to feel supported as a new grad going into the workforce when literally no one was seeing each other in real life. And, you're kind of scared to ask questions or look stupid, even though you're absolutely going to look stupid as a new grad. So I just like didn't have the best experience. When I heard that they had to lay off so many people, I had made it through the first round of layoffs and I thought, okay, I need to go somewhere else. The company was around 800 people at the time, so they had to go from 800 to 400 people. And so I thought, okay, maybe it was the size of the company where I couldn't tell that the business was doing so poorly. Maybe I need to go somewhere a little bit smaller, and therefore I could be closer to the problem and understand better the health of the business. So I decided to go even smaller. I then went to a Series B startup called Alt, which specializes in alternative assets. So NFT adjacent, not like actual NFTs, more like physical collectibles. Think like trading cards, essentially. I thought it was a really interesting prospect. They were fully remote, and I was just kind of happy to have a lifeline thrown at me after my last company was like really going through it. I, at that point, had already started to think, okay, I don't really love software engineering. It's not exactly my thing, but I was desperate to find a new job. So I took this new software engineering position at Alt, and I thought, okay, maybe because the company is different, the people are different, the business is different, that I'll find that I start to like software engineering in a different context. Usually your gut is right most of the time, because turns out I didn't love software engineering any more at this place than my last place. And very naive of me to think that I'd have a better time at a smaller company where there's a lot more visibility, a lot more stress, and the expectation is that everyone is like working a lot harder. So didn't have a great experience there. Something that I realized is that I definitely became closer to the problem. I definitely had a better understanding of the health of the business, but it wasn't doing great. And that's where I started to realize, okay, even if you're a software engineer, you can't solve a business problem as a software engineer. You can see the ship sinking, understand why it's sinking. But if the person telling you to patch holes or telling you to patch the wrong ones, then the ship is still going to sink. This is when my mind started to understand that maybe if what I was more interested in was like, why is the ship sinking, then maybe I shouldn't be doing software engineering. I think the best way that I can describe the two different disciplines is software engineering is all about how to build something. And I'm not trying to diminish this job family because that's incredibly important. You can also make a business fail if you build it incorrectly, technically. But software engineering is about how you build something, how you build it efficiently, how you build it in a way that is maintainable by other engineers. Whereas product management is about what are we building and why are we building it. I found myself much more interested in the latter set of questions. While I was at Alt 2, we did not have a PM the entire time I was there. The engineers would prioritize, groom, come up with tickets, come up with features, and etc. And I found myself much more interested in the product management side of the work. So all of these things were kind of brewing in my subconscious in the back of my mind. Finally, when I think like the business was kind of going through it, I was laid off at the end of 2022. And that was pretty devastating to me because I started to really internalize, like, am I just a bad engineer? Am I just blah, 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 blah? And the honest truth of it was like, I wasn't a bad engineer, but a startup of that size needed an engineer that was just more experienced than me. Now that I'm at a much bigger company, I know I wasn't a bad engineer. I was probably comparable to a lot of other engineers, but it's just not the level of like experience, efficiency, and like coding that they needed. And I don't blame them for that. Wow, look at us acknowledging and healing from our traumas. But anyways, why I ultimately decided to switch to product management. Number one, I had the opportunity because I was laid off. And I already started to think I didn't really like software engineering to begin with. Two, honestly, I was not confident in my coding skills because of my prior experience at a startup that just like needed someone who could code faster than I was doing. Three, having to half PM, half engineer, I was just way more interested in the PM work. Four, the realization that you can't fix a failing business as a software engineer. And five, because I had a successful side business, I knew I had a knack for it. And product management seemed like the perfect role for someone who is in between disciplines. And the advice that I had always been given was that, oh, if you have an engineering background, it'll be very easy for you to switch into product management because you can kind of gain the respect of engineers, which I always thought was like kind of silly, but I kind of get it. Because you have to manage a technical product, you have the requisite background knowledge to understand how it works. I think if you're evaluating what product management roles you're wanting to go into after software engineering, you kind of have to understand that product management, and you'll hear everyone say this, but product management looks really different depending on what company you join. At some larger companies, it's a lot more process management or project management is a criticism that you'll often hear. At startups, another criticism is that product managers have to do too much and they have to wear so many hats. They're the mini CEO of their product. I kind of like, I don't know, like about all of these descriptions of product management. Let me try to explain to you what I've learned about product management. And keep in mind, I've had about a year and a half of professional corporate experience. And I'm going to be so real with you. I don't think that I have heard these takes on product management before. But as a Gen Z millennial cusp product manager, this is just what makes sense to me. I think all PMs are essentially corporate manifestors, like professional manifesting is your job. This is going to sound insane to some of you who are like, isn't product management about A/B testing and user research, blah, blah, blah. Let's not overcomplicate this, okay? Product management is pretty much just manifesting, which is why I think I'm actually pretty good at it. Like, unlike when I was a software engineer, I think I constantly had imposter syndrome. I don't know why, but I am just intuitively really confident about product management because I think I've gotten really good at manifesting things that I've wanted for myself in life. But for product management, you're manifesting that on behalf of your company. So like the company is trying to automate its entire data management system. What does that look like? Like software engineering, you hear automation. Oh, is that a software engineer's job to figure out how that works? No. It is a product manager's job to figure out what the end state ideal vision is. It is your job to be a little bit delulu, to identify what the product, and this is essentially product vision. And then the tricky part about product management is you are kind of responsible for all these pieces falling into place and then actualizing that vision, but you don't do anything yourself. You are dependent on everyone else, like doing what is necessary to remove all the dependencies, to like actually meet their deliverables on time, and then you piece that all together, and that's your deliverable as a product manager. So it's kind of weird. My last manager, before I had transitioned into product management, he was like, product management isn't easier than software engineering, right? I think he thought maybe that I was like just trying to escape software engineering because I thought it was too hard. I did think it was too hard. And I do think that product management is hard in a different way, but I'm just better at it. So it's like easier for me. But I think what's hard about product management is that you have to sell the vision. Not only do you have to come up with the vision, you have to refine that vision. My friend Carissa and I, she's one of my best friends, and she's also a product manager. We came up with a list of product management terms and like translated them into Gen Z language. So at a high level, your job as a product manager is to set the vision, manifest, create a vision board. When you do manifesting and they're like, I have like $1 million in my pocket and I got it by doing XYZ, and you list kind of like the specific steps that you're going to take to execute on the vision. That's essentially a product requirements document. Like getting your vision more clear and practicing the delulu and getting to a point where like you can place yourself in the body of the person who has already achieved everything that you want. That's writing a product requirements document. There's a product manager that I don't want to say like mentor, but we kind of are each other's sounding boards. She's a little bit younger than me. She was like, Karina, is it a problem that I haven't done a PRD yet? And I was like, girl, do not worry about that. Because even though you've never done a PRD, you've done a PRD. Because a PRD is essentially a vision board with words. Second, kind of like common corporate lingo that you'll hear in product management is driving alignment. Driving alignment, if I translate it to colloquial Gen Z terms, means the girls are beefing. The girls are beefing, and it's your job to get everyone on the same page. So engineering is going to have beef with design because design wants something really complicated. And then engineering thinks that like they're not going to be able to do it in time. And it's your job to tell everyone, look, this is the value we need to unlock for our customers at the end of the day. It is your job to get everyone on the same page. The girls are always going to be beefing, and it's your job to get them to stop beefing. Sometimes I describe it a little bit like being a corporate babysitter, but okay. And then there's socialization, right? You got to sell your vision. You are kind of the person that ends up controlling resourcing, right? A lot of the engineers that I work with on a day-to-day, they're like, Karina, what do you do? Like literally, what do you do all day? And I get that sentiment because it's like, what are you doing if I'm the one coding? Like I'm the one actually making this product a real thing. And I get that. Like I totally respect that. But also, if I didn't create the scope for you, you wouldn't have a job. So it's product's job to figure out not only what should we build that the customer wants, but also what should we build and how many people do we need, and like how big is it? How big is this thing we're trying to build? Is there potential for it to grow? Because there are product teams where the product is just on like the back burner. Like the product is just running itself. There's no new features. There's no new vision. There's nothing there. It's kind of your job to be Delulu, manifest and be like, this is where we could go. We can start with this little proof of concept where we automate just like this little part of our project or of our company. But like the grand vision is automating everything across XYZ, like data platforms or whatever, right? Like you have to be the one that can see the greater opportunity that people can work on and the value that that can bring to people and the impact that that can bring your business. So that part of product management, which is like in corporate lingo called socialization, I call being a TikTok shop influencer for your product. Like you have to sell this thing, especially like my experience as a product manager that works on an internal product. So it's very like, it can get kind of politicky sometimes. You have to sell your vision to the people who are going to be giving you tech resources to actually make it a vision. You're going to have to sell this to your customers who actually use your product and why like it would help improve their lives. Like you have to do that work to like be a TikTok shop influencer for your product, because the engineers aren't going to do it. Their job is to focus on how to build it. I think in some companies, they call this product marketing managers. I think Facebook has something like that, which is basically like, how do people find out about your product? How do you grow the product? I think some people call this growth PMs as well. Like, how do people find out about the product? How do we scale the product? Like, get more people interested in the product? That's honestly an aspect of product management I would be interested in exploring at a future date. And product refinement, which is essentially visualization. Refinement is figuring out all the little details. Like when you visualize, like, I want my dream apartment. Any like person who does manifestation is going to tell you like, okay, where's the apartment? How big is it? Which directions are the windows facing? What furniture are you going to put in it? Like, what features does it have? Does your building have amenities? Do you have a washer dryer? Like, what is your dream apartment exactly? So that's what product refinement really is. Now that I've given my take on what product management is, from my experience with it, if you're still bought in and interested and you're like, yeah, I want to be working in this as opposed to software engineering, then let me tell you how I got here in the first place. So this was the timeline for how I made the switch. I was laid off in December of 2022. I spent 1 month just like rotting, literally doing nothing, like just taking a break because I was pretty burnt out. I was working until pretty late at night often for the past like 2 months before I was laid off. So I literally just did nothing. I watched 2 seasons of White Lotus and learned how to do my own like gel manicures. That was like an entire month. And then by the second month, I kind of started to come to terms with the fact, obviously in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what do I want to do next? What do I want to do next? Do I want to keep recruiting in this job family? Do I want to do something else? By the time the second month came around, I came to terms with the fact that I wasn't going to like software engineering anymore at a new place. And I decided that I was going to switch. So at this point, I cleaned up my resume and like reformatted it in a way where it read more like a product management resume as opposed to a software engineering resume. And you should be pretty cognizant of that. Like software engineering, you want to highlight like XYZ years of experience in Python, in like these specific AWS like things that I worked with, microservices, your specific like data engineering skills. Maybe you've like set up pipelines before, maybe I don't know, like whatever. A software engineering resume is way more about the granularity and proficiency of skills in those technical aspects. Product management is way more narrative than that. There are definitely skills like Agile and Scrum, but like those aren't real product management skills. And if you tell people like, oh yeah, I'm experienced in like product refinement or like socialization or writing PRDs, like no one's going to believe you. Frankly, honestly, like no one's going to believe you. You need to be really specific about the end-to-end experience of working on a product. And I know what you're thinking, like, Karina, how do you do that if you've only ever been a software engineer? I think this is where side projects, like, or just projects in general, like, instead of framing your skills as a software engineer as like, oh, I improved runtime from by like 80%. I decreased our storage footprint by like 90%. It becomes more like ideated, tested, and launched improved data processing, which led to XYZ outcomes. And if you can reframe things from the perspective of, it's not that I made these cost savings, it's more like, oh, I provided value for the end user or for the company in that way. It's very slight, but it is a lot more narrative of a way of writing your resume. Something I found really useful when I was doing this, because I would shop my resume around to my friends and be like, hey, can you look at this? What are your thoughts? Like, could I get your edits on this? And like, they're all going to be way nicer than some random person on the internet. I was following this person on TikTok called Alex the PM. She had a Discord channel where people were trying to pivot into product management industries. I was looking it up. I can't find it anymore. Not really sure why. Maybe there's something shady about it. But I would look for Discord communities or online communities where people are also looking to get into product management, because there are some like experienced product management people who are in those forums trying to help those that are trying to get into the industry. So some, God bless their soul, some senior product manager took a look at my resume, which had gone through at least 3 friends, my brother who's a PM of 8 years, and was like, this is trash, and like change this, change that, blah, 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 blah. And my resume was so much better, and I started to actually hear back from people after that. So I would put your resume in front of strangers on the internet, because they are going to be the most honest with you. The second thing I did during this 2-month period was, during this second month of being unemployed, was I got the Cracking the PM interview book. Read that. I think that's the Bible for PM interviewing. And she kind of walks you through a timeline, step by step, like how you should prepare for this, and how you should create a matrix of stories that you can tell during your interviews that can highlight why you're a competent product manager, even if you've had no experience. I would go through that book and start building your matrix of stories and start practicing interviewing. And this was the most important part out of all of this. This is all like table stakes, right? But I think what really accelerated this for me was I started reaching out to 5 new people on LinkedIn every single day. Like, especially if you have no experience, no one is going to hire you if you just start blind applying. Even if you have a referral, like, it's really not going to do that much for you. You need to start networking heavily. You need to start like LinkedIn, get LinkedIn Premium, reach out to 5 new people every single day, meaning like they're not first connections, maybe they're second connections, and find people who are product managers and working at companies you're interested at, or they work at a company that has an open role, and ask them like, hey, I'm really interested in you and your career, I'd love to learn more about like what that experience was like from you. Do not ask for a referral. Just straight up be like, I'm interested in you, love to hear more about what you've experienced. And people are way more interested in responding to things like that. And just keep doing that. It might seem really tedious, and I don't think I really saw the effects of it until maybe like at the end of the month, like 3 weeks in. I started to see a lot of traction where I met other product managers who like really wanted to support me, who ended up referring me to one product manager referred me to a startup that was looking for like a beginning software engineer PM, a hybrid role. And that's the first offer that I ended up getting. And I used that to then negotiate the other offer that I ultimately ended up taking at a company that I was much more interested at, which is my current company. And I think that just lended so much credibility to me because I had no experience, but here I had another offer. So clearly, like, I was a desirable candidate. And then the third month, I was just applying. I was like obsessively applying, networking, starting to interview. I interviewed at a couple different places, like 4 or 5 different places. And then the fourth month, I was interviewing and negotiating the offer, doing the background check and everything with my preferred company, my current one. And then I had gotten an offer and signed and started. So it took me like 4 months to pivot. I'm not saying that it's going to take the same amount of time for you. It might take longer or not as long as that, but I found it really difficult for myself to figure out how long I should be taking when I was trying to make this transition. So I'm just offering this as like context for you. I have to be honest that the position that I'm currently in, I got really lucky. The first offer that I got was completely through people who I didn't know before, strangers on LinkedIn that ended up taking a chance on me. So I'm very grateful for that. But the position that I'm currently in is because I saw a LinkedIn post from a friend that I went to college with, and his manager was the hiring manager. And here's the thing that I feel like people usually don't talk about. They say, oh yeah, you need a referral in order to get the job. But I don't even think that a referral is that useful. Honestly, because I've given referrals to people and it doesn't seem to really make a difference. But I think that the only time in which a referral means something is if you know the hiring manager. For example, like right now, one of the people that I work with, I know that she is looking for someone. And I said, hey, I know a guy that might fit your needs. And she's like, oh, okay, cool. What's his name? What's blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, okay, I'll tell the recruiter to look out for him. That's the only time it makes a difference. I got really lucky like that in my career that this person like knew the hiring manager who was looking for someone for his role. So I think that's the level of networking you got to get to. Like, you got to know that the person referring you is working with and had recommended you directly to the hiring manager. That's when it makes the biggest difference. So I just have to be honest with that. Like, just applying to places where you have no connection, and you're just blind applying is pretty difficult. Who knows, it might work, but in my case, it hasn't really, or it's only really worked once. The other thing that I realized was that having the successful side business was pretty critical. Like, when I would tell that story to the hiring managers that I was interviewing with, they were always very enamored, because what is more peak product management than like testing the demand for a product on social media, getting validation from it, building up the supply chain and all of that yourself, distributing through your direct to consumer site, and then like receiving sales from that. Like, that's the most pinnacle of product management example that you can think of, is like having a real business. So I think that having that side project was pretty crucial for me gaining the trust of people who wanted to take a chance on me and thought that I would have the required skills for it. So if you don't have an experience like that, I don't think you necessarily need to start a business, but I do think you need some experience of creating something from nothing. Because again, product management is really just professional manifesting. Like, what have you manifested? You gotta like show a little bit of evidence of that. And it's the fortunate thing is that that's quite vague. Like, you could have created and brought a variety of products into existence, but you just have to have done that at least once before. And it doesn't have to be strictly through like a business. It could have been through some similar project while you were a software engineer. Maybe you had pitched an idea at your company for a new like enhancement to a feature that your product manager suggested to you, and it ended up improving the product or the like user feedback to a certain degree. Like that's a good example. Like it can be these more granular examples. So I hope that was helpful to you. You got to hear a little bit about how I transitioned from software engineering to product management with no explicit professional experience. And if you're on this journey and you've decided that this is it for you, good luck. So if you have any questions specifically about product management, about switching to product management, or my own experiences. Bye.